Hello everyone, my name is Jam. Today I would like to talk about an evaluation plan for all the action plans. This is the content for my presentations. First of all, I am going to talk about the introduction. Next, I am going to talk about how will the change be evaluated and how will the evaluation measure employees' responses to the intervention. Lastly, I would like to talk about how will the evaluation outcomes be articulated and promoted to stakeholders. Well, why do we need to evaluate the organizational change? If the evaluation strategies are appropriately enhanced and used, the evaluation results can contribute to the organizational development and success. The effective evaluation procedures combine the objective with subjective, qualitative with quantitative, intuitive with explicit. Now let's move on to how will the change be evaluated. Well, change leaders require to measure the degree that employees are performing routines, practice, and behaviors that are in the planned change procedure. There are two factors that influence employee attitude to change, such as readiness to change and openness to change. Well, we can use trust in colleagues and leaderships and self-efficacy for change in order to measure readiness to change. Readiness evaluation should be rely on observing, interviewing, and administering questionnaires. Openness to change. Well, we can use factors such as trust in senior manager, design for achievement, open to change in the past, and receive quality of shares information in order to measure openness to change. Now I would like to focus more on tools to evaluate readiness for change. There are some tools such as management support of the change, employees having the skills to execute the change, employee participation, support from managers, trust in management, and cohesion. Well, survey feedback is a tool for all the intervention that offer objective information about the organization's operating to its employees, rely on the data accumulated from them. Moreover, a survey feedback is expensive when employees are willing to take action based on it. This happens when the feedback is considered as important, meaningful, detailed, honest, and easy to understand and demonstrate. Most importantly, a timely feedback guarantees that the issues being solved are relevant and that the data on which they are relied is valid. More important, it offers feedback to obtain an understanding of the change impacts and in order to make improvements. Periodic evaluation is important in order to identify whether the plan change is creating expected activities, experiences, and desirable outcomes. Therefore, change management should be evaluated in three important periods, such as 1 month before change, directly after the intervention, and 1 year after the change. Well, using questionnaires and interviews in order to measure employees' responses to understand of the change. For example, the members use implementation feedback to measure the progress of change after 3 months of implementing these interventions. Now, I would like to focus on how will the evaluation measure employees' responses to the intervention. First of all, interviews and questionnaires are popular and practical methods in order to measure productivities. In terms of morale, data collection such as personal survey methods is implemented to collect final data by using questionnaires. Now let's move on to engagement. Well, we can use degrees level of absenteeism and also committee staff who tend to express extra role behaviors in order to measure employee engagement. For example, employees take advantage of their productivity, which contributes to enhance the organizational performance. Moreover, other factors can measure employees' commitment to change are high acceptance of the organizational values and goals, willingness to make significant effort to work, strong desire to maintain memberships in organizations, enthusiasm to make effort to change programs, enhance positive attitudes and behaviors toward change, increase productivity, satisfaction, and morale. Lastly, enhance involvement, participation, and improves behaviors toward change, such as decrease complaints about change. Moreover, other elements such as psychological resilience, managers and employees' relationship, and perceived fairness of change can enhance commitment to change. Now, we want to talk about job satisfaction. Well, job resources play an important role in evaluating of organizational change perceptions, aligning the idea that employees who receive adequate resources will be motivated to do their job and be more involved in the change procedures. Uh, moreover, at least three elements moreover, job demands and resources have been considered to involve work-family conflicts, job satisfaction, absenteeism, performance, and work commitment. For example, there are two factors such as intention to leave and fatigue that can be considered as one of the behavioral indicators of employees in terms of evaluating of organizational change. For example, intention to leave. Uh, dissatisfied employees tend to decide to leave as a direct reaction when they do not trust the situation is likely to improve. In terms of fatigue, employees who perceive they have no control over the change process may respond with exhaustion when they believe that they will not be able to improve the circumstance. Now, let's move on to mental health. A combination of quantitative and qualitative evaluation is effective for a measure of job stress related to change. Moreover, at least three elements of process indicator that should be evaluated in the qualitative evaluations, such as context, content, or intervention, and mental models, including employees' expectations and readiness for change. There are some factors that can measure employees' mental health. For example, sickness absenteeism, immediate sickness, or extended stress and strain conditions in terms of professional and personal aspects. The quantity of days of sick leave and experience stressful work conditions. Well, mental health can be monitored by observing less absenteeism based on occupational health safety data or surveys. For example, how employees feeling or what they experience related to change. Stress is common for degree motivation, morale, performance, job satisfactions, internal communication, and increased turnover, sick leave, and conflicts. So the organization can use ASSET is a tool to measure stress, which is very effective. Lastly, I'd like to talk about work intensification. We can use factors such as injuries, exhaustion, and satisfaction in order to evaluate work intensification. Now, let's move on to how will the evaluation outcomes be articulated and promoted to stakeholders. It relates to accumulating reliable standards from different stakeholders because no single evaluation technique is better. So each method has its own strengths and weaknesses. Therefore, Nicholas recommends using two types of standards, such as directly linked to activities in the program, attitude measures designed to evaluate what prompted, linked to job attitudes such as complaint praise, work performance, or turnover rate. However, the standards to evaluate progress may be different depends on different stakeholders involved. So, for staff, the university should communicate to all employees and especially listen carefully to employee feedback and reaction. Moreover, the university should collect quantitative and qualitative data combination in order to get employee insights. Um, so we should conduct a representative feedback suggestion focus group survey and informal meeting for staff. For the university, we should provide information related to student enrollment, the university reputations, staff feedback, academic surveys, financial achievements, and student retentions. For manager, we should provide written reports, documents, debrief, take action, work on plan change, and change policies. Most importantly, what's improvements and challenges of the team. For the unions, in terms of staff, we should provide information related to staff satisfaction, enhance employees' mental health, well-being, and moral and job satisfactions. About students, we should provide information related to student commitment and satisfaction, student well-being, mental health, and their learning outcomes. Last but not least, I would like to talk about students. For students, we should provide insights related to enhance student well-being, mental health, and their learning outcomes. Learning outcomes and commitment data, the university reputation, teaching qualities, measure subject performance, student satisfaction, and feedback. Employment relationship, including employability surveys, for example, employer satisfaction surveys, interviews, students having job rates, alumni, employability skills, graduation rate, graduates work performance, employability feedback on graduate, how graduate skills align industry, report from internship, collaboration with alumni. These are the references for my presentation.